Do you agree with this statement? The vast majority of investment mistakes are not mistakes of the intellect. They are mistakes below the neck. They are emotional mistakes. What do you think? The vast majority of mistakes are emotional mistakes, not intellectual mistakes. So a big part of being an advisor is to get, or at least reduce, the amount of emotion in the investment process. That's a big part of what you do. But how to do that? How do you do that? You got to narrow it down. I started as an analyst, so one of the reasons I love coming to Vest is because all of you have a numbers background first before you got into being an advisor, being a salesperson. And that was the story of my career. And I drove myself crazy. I was working on Wall Street, and I'm looking for the answer. I'd be up all night, a lot of nights, using those numbers and looking for the answers. And one night I'm sitting there, I never found an answer. I'm sitting there, I'm working my tail off, and up comes one of the legendary advisors, the big boss. And he says, "What are you doing, Alan?" I said, "I'm looking for the answer." He said, "You won't find it in there." I said, "What?" He said, "Alan, analysis is critical. Analysis is so important, but analysis will never give you the answer. The purpose of analysis isn't to give you the answer. It is to narrow down the area in which you guess. But in the end, do not kid yourself. In the end, you are guessing. Now, it's critical to guess here, not here. But in the end, you're guessing." Another way of saying that is that the final investment decision, almost always, is not made in the numbers. It's made below the neck, in the heart, in the stomach, in the core. That's where it happens, below the neck. A friend of mine runs a BMW dealership. And he makes the point, he believes all buying decisions are emotional. I don't know about all, but almost all. And the way he tells this story, a guy comes in, a medical device scientist, successful, he's buying a $100,000 car. He says, "Look, I'm really interested in this car, but I want you to understand that I am a technical man. I am a medical device scientist. I'm an engineer by training. I will make a rational decision. I want to see the performance characteristics. I want to look at the service warranties. I want to look at the comparisons of all the financials. It's got to be red. I want to look at safety features and financing. It's got to be red." It's an emotional decision. And a big part of your job, our job, is to know people's psyches, know their investment wiring. Great advisors ask a lot of questions. They listen to the answers and they uncover the client's investment wiring. Scott was up here talking about Joe's client, the woman with $13 million. He asked, he listened, and he got to know her investment wiring. What is investment wiring? It's their feelings and attitudes, the underlying stuff. It's their self-image, their baggage. What kind of baggage are they carrying about money? Any obsolete beliefs or memories about money? My grandfather lost everything he had. That affects how they think. Family influences. And know that if you're dealing with a married couple, you probably have two sets of baggage and they don't match. So let me give you one of mine. Before I left for grad school, I had socked away a couple of $100, but I wanted it to be more, and I had a feeling. I knew how I was going to make this more. I had a feeling. I'm 22 years old. 5. The number 5. It's going to work. There was a racetrack nearby. I'd never been to it, but I went for the first time. I was careful. You've got to be careful about these things. I waited. I only bet on it, number 5 times out of 9 races. 9 races, I bet on it 5 times. It won 4 times. It never won when I bet on it. Now, if you're my advisor, you need to know that story, because that affects my attitude about a lot of things about investing. How are you going to get that story out of me? How are you going to get to talk to people at the level where you can get that story out of them? Jonas Salk. Jonas Salk is the man who discovered the polio vaccine, saved an enormous number of lives. He said that people do not understand what the moment of discovery is. The moment of discovery is not the moment of discovery. The moment of discovery is the discovery of just the right question. And so the moment of discovery for you, I think, as Joe found out apparently in that case with the woman with $13 million, is finding the right question or questions to ask. In my little book, we have 180 questions, but it's really not about those questions. It's about priming your pump. So you start to think about questions and come up with your own questions, particularly for those clients. Let's look at a few questions. The first one is pretty obvious. May I ask you some questions? Don't leave it out. It's polite. What worries you? What concerns you? Do not ask a man my age what keeps him up at night. You don't want to know. Ask him what concerns him. The next one's a little odd. You get a new client, and you look at him and say, Bob and Jane, who do you want my client to be? And if they say anything other than, because it's a nonsensical question, they're going to say something like, what do you mean? We're the only ones in the room. Oh, no, there's a lot more people in the room than Bob and Jane. There's Bob and Jane now. But then there's Bob and Jane in 20 years, when they retire, or 25 or 30. And then there's Bob and Jane's children. And then there's Bob and Jane's charities, and whatever else Bob and Jane care about. I want you to tell me who you want my primary client to be.